Okay, so now that we've discussed some preconceptions that we have about whose role it is to teach reading, I wanted to dive into comprehension in the content areas. So this professional development workshop was specifically designed for middle school teachers who teach content area studies. So you might be sitting here, it's 9 o'clock in the morning on a teacher workday, thinking, why am I here? The burning question is, why should I teach reading? I teach math, I teach science. Why do I have to be here? Which is okay. We're going to go through that together. I want to begin by taking a look at a text and thinking about it through the lens of our students. I want you to read the paragraph below from 2 to this ellipsis, and then summarize it in your head in your own words. We'll come back together in a moment. So if you read this and you completely understood the passage, it's probably because you had some background knowledge about Nietzsche and his existential philosophies, his biography. However, if you had no background knowledge about the philosopher, you might have found it tricky to make meaning of the passage. So there's a few reasons why the text, the content area text, the textbooks, the articles, the supplemental resources we provide students in our content areas could be challenging and could pose potential hindrances to their comprehension. And those include tough vocabulary. Our content areas are embedded with domain-specific vocabulary that students aren't exposed to beyond those classes. So that vocabulary could be complex. The concepts embedded could be complex. Here we have severity, concision, Sallust, grog, caliber, Schleppforda, physiology. And if you didn't know these words, or if you didn't know concepts, if you didn't know that Sallust was a Roman politician and historian, or that Schleppforda is a German word that I'm probably mispronouncing, and it's referring to an academic institution where the author studied, you might have found it difficult to make meaning from this text. And this is what our students are exposed to every day within our classes. So maybe students are testing poorly when we assess them, formally or informally. But could it be that it's because students are having challenges with the written text that we provide them as a means to learn the content? So why should I teach reading? According to the educational philosophers or scholars, Bean, Reedens, and Baldwin, every teacher is a teacher of reading, and every teacher teaches students to learn with texts. Let's think about that. How often do we provide students textbooks or articles or any other text-based resources as a means to teach or guide their understanding of the subject matter? It's probably frequently, even in math, even in science. So what now? If we understand, if we're on board with the idea that we must teach students how to read the text we provide them, we can also get to this fundamental understanding that to do so, we must understand ourselves and instruct our students to understand that reading is thinking. So how can we guide students through the process of comprehending content area texts to comprehend the concepts we teach them? Well, we can preview and instruct new concepts and vocabulary, build that background knowledge so that they begin with a general understanding, a good foundational knowledge before they dive into those texts. We can incorporate a variety of texts. We teach in the 21st century, so using digital texts and podcasts and audiobooks, as well as a variety of narrative, informational, and fictional texts can really provide students a holistic understanding of the concepts we're trying to convey. We also want to make reading relevant. We want our middle and high school students to feel like, yeah, I see myself in the texts that we're reading, or I see the problems that I experience or the people around me are experiencing and my values. So we want to purposefully select socially and culturally responsive literature. And finally, not last but not least, rather, we want to teach text structure. So because the content area is so often integrated with informational texts, we want to teach those challenging structures explicitly to our students so they understand the author's purpose for writing in a certain way. Are they sequencing? Are they comparing and contrasting two ideas? Because they can read then the content or the text that we provide them through a deeper lens of understanding. So metacognition is one strategy that I'd like to discuss with you today. Metacognition is also or often referred to as thinking about your thinking. And that's an okay definition, but we want to think about metacognition deeply, and it has two aspects. There's the knowledge of our own thinking. It's understanding what influences our thinking, the strategies that help us to think and to learn, those that hinder us, and which strategy we can use in a certain circumstance. And it's also the regulation of our thinking. It's setting our goals for our learning. It's monitoring our own learning, thinking, no, I don't understand that word. What can I do to understand it better? What resources do I have at hand? And it's also evaluating our learning. It's thinking, how does this information fit in with my current schema, or how does it change my ideas surrounded around this concept? And metacognitive strategies could be used before, during, and after reading. So how do we use them? Within our instructional design, there are various ways that we can allow students or aid students in the use of metacognitive strategies that bolster their comprehension. So we want to explicitly teach them and teach students this is why it's important. We want to model these strategies in action so that kids understand the way to go about this thinking about our own thinking. And we want kids to have enough time to practice these strategies, provide them a structure like a graphic organizer or a note taker to help them record and monitor their thinking. Provide them instant feedback, allow them to reflect, and use writing to also deepen their comprehension and to assess their comprehension informally. So at this moment, what I'd like you to do is to turn to your partner. And I want you to address this question in a respectful dialogue. So what? How does this information about content area comprehension relate to your teaching? And how can you bring these metacognitive strategies into your classroom? Thank you.